Hey everyone, Ariel Adams here with the Spending Time podcast. Today, David, Brett, and I are going to talk about the highs and lows of pre-owned, aka used Rolex. This is part of a bigger topic that we're looking to explore, and that is the trajectory of the pre-owned watch market in general. And I thought I'd start with Rolex, which is probably the most popular watch on the pre-owned market in terms of people buying it. Not all Rolexes, but Rolexes definitely represent a lot. I know that I've looked at pre-owned Rolexes. David, have you looked at pre-owned Rolexes ever?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We've spent a lot
All
of
the
time.
time.
Now, let's just, for people that don't really know, what is the experience like today buying a hot Rolex watch, basically new or pre-owned? What is that experience like if it's a watch which is in demand? What's that going to be like?
It's a painful experience, is what I would call it.
Wow,
Because
painful.
technically, yeah, exactly. That's the first word that springs to mind.
That's not a good thing. I mean, these are supposed to be items that we purchase for celebratory reasons. When you buy it, you want to feel good. You want to feel positive about it. How did it get to the point of being a painful experience?
Well, how I'm not sure about, but the way it got there is by limiting supply and making it very difficult for people to find the watches that they actually want. It's just some watches are just so limited in supply that it's just extremely difficult to find them on the market at a reasonable price.
So let's talk about a little context right here, because I think people deserve to know what's going on. And it's honestly, it's a topic which the complexity of which has so many layers. I'm struggling to put it together myself. Let's suffice it to say that right now, if you were looking for a hot Rolex product, you're going to be spending above retail. That's for new and many used watches as well. In general, the pre-owned watch market used to be the place to go for like awesome deals. There was unwanted watches that you could get at a really good price, a discount, if you will, off the retail price just for buying pre-owned, as well as gray market. But things have changed a lot, and they're going to keep changing. And what I think is happening is that the industry itself has recognized that the pre-owned market has affected its values. And there's also, it's compounded by the fact that there was such an overproduction of watches. And all these watches that were overproduced on the secondhand market in order to not anger the brands were called pre-owned. So a lot of pre-owned out there was, and perhaps still is, actually new product that just hasn't been sold by an authorized dealer. So this market for pre-owned watches was just massive, really just massive. And it really started to affect prices because everyone was like, well, I'll just wait to buy when it's much cheaper on the pre-owned market. And a lot of people were just not buying new anymore. And I've talked to a lot of people in the business side that got very excited about pre-owned. And over the last couple of years, lots of businesses, like some of them very well funded, popped up to specialize just buying pre-owned watches, or just for buying them, and they also purchase them from consumers. David, you've noticed this, right? All these companies that have kind of sprouted up to buy watches, to trade watches, to sell watches, none of them new.
Yeah, that's one element, and the other element I think that's interesting that we should discuss later on sometime is that how some of these companies are selling brand new watches marked as pre-owned because they realize that if you sell them as new at a heavy discount that and otherwise like a pre-owned watch would enjoy like a 40% or 50% 35% discount, but one of these big brands, they are not allowed to give that sort of discount. So what they would do is list them as pre-owned and then say, hey, we have a lot of time remaining on the factory warranty, and that's because it's actually a new watch a lot of the times, but it's listed as pre-owned, and that this way the watches move out of storage and onto people's wrists. The brands are happy, these guys are happy, and then the brand value isn't as damaged as it would be if you could walk into a store and buy a new watch
What's
at 35%
interesting?
off.
In some instances, especially if there isn't too much over inventory, calling something pre-owned versus unsold can actually allow you to get a better price. Right? If something is unsold and at a really low price, well, you're sometimes suspicious about it, but that's sometimes the only way to do it. If it's pre-owned, and then you think that there's an exclusivity factor to it, right? Not that there's like a bunch of these in stock, but like this is just like one. It looks to be really, really good condition. That's great. And you actually might pay more than if it was just like one of many potential unsold watches.
There is that psychological upside to it as well. Yeah.
Well, that's a big part of it. I mean, let's face it. Psychology has a big part to do with purchasing any watch. Now, let's
Absolutely.
assume that Rolex is relatively innocent. We know that they're not necessarily shipping as many of these sport watches as they could. Maybe they're not shipping less than they did historically. Let's assume, just for a moment, that demand around the world for steel Rolex sport watches is increased. Why do you think that might be?
I can imagine a host of reasons. One is just because if something is hot, then more and more people will want in on it because they want to be able to say, "Oh, do you have that watch?" "Yes, I have that." It's that watch that everybody wants. So I think at some point it's just something that gets stronger and stronger as time goes on, even though it's not necessarily merited. Especially when you're saying goodbye to getting a better value for your money when you're paying more for a steel Daytona than you would for a two-tone Daytona with a lot of gold in it, and maybe it even has a special dial. So if you look at, for example, like a steel and yellow gold Daytona with a yellow gold bezel and center links and pushers and crown and a mauve dial with diamond indices, there's a good chance you can pick one of those up for less than what you would be paying for an all steel Daytona with a box standard dial.
Yeah, I mean these are all excellent points. I believe that Rolex is a very conservative buy, and we are in times where people tend to spend very conservatively. When economies are stagnating, people don't necessarily know when they're going to get their next sort of big check, so to say. So if they're going to do luxury purchases, they tend to buy things that they feel they can resell for a relatively predictable amount, or at least as much as possible. And so when times are good, people are a lot more experimental in the types of watches that they buy because they're not necessarily as concerned about resale value. But when economic times are more stagnant or in a recession, people definitely want to be able to get the maximum return on their investment. I think that's what's happening now. And I think that if we did see people return to sort of more extravagant spending or sort of experimental spending, I think that would actually be a signal of an improving economy around the world. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I'm just still baffled by. I'm looking on Chrono 24 right now, and I found a Daytona with a white gold case. It's on a leather strap, but it's still a white gold Daytona with a mother of pearl dial. It looks really cool, and it's like $19,000, which is thereabouts, or actually even less than a silver Daytona would be. So where is the actual value? Where is the actual potential for good resale? If people start to realize that there actually is a lot of steel Daytonas out there, once people start dumping them, then you will have to just go back to where actual real value is and limited supply actually.
You could, Rolex has had some great times in the past where you could get fantastic products for not too much money. Right now is
Mm,
not one of those times. I was just in
yeah.
Hong Kong, and Hong Kong is a great place to shop for watches. They have all the hot models. Over the last several years, I've noticed that the prices have got less and less awesome. It's not to say that you can't get the lowest price in Hong Kong if you really, really try, but you can definitely pay very high. I was
Oh
going
yeah.
around from store to store looking at prices for the same watches that varied by thousands of dollars, literally hundreds of feet away.
Wow.
And these are the exact same watch, exact same condition. Some of them were
Mm,
Rolexes. And I'm a watch collector. I like watches. I like Rolex. There's some interesting models out there. Some that have just come out. Some that are no longer made that I like. And the thing is, I found every single one of the watches that I wanted to find in Hong Kong. Multiple. There was more than one of all the watches I'm interested in, but none of them were at a price that was as good as the lowest published price of the same type of thing online in the U.S. So I'm of course going to
mm.
go online, and some of these
But
watches were thousands of priced more than, I'll call it, the internet price that you could find from like reputable things. I'm not talking about some random eBay auction.
yeah.
And I couldn't figure out why that was. I think that it has something to do with who these stores are trying to sell to. I think there's um, some type of customer they have in mainland China right now who can't seem to get that product easily in mainland China. So I think they're servicing them. Again, a lot of these stores didn't seem to have any interest in my or anyone else's business. It didn't seem to be this core group of people going in that they already knew. So I don't understand that side of it. But what I can say is that not only are they putting a premium on the brand new hard to get watches? But the first time ever, they speak differently about pre-owned watches as well as older ones, and they're putting them at a very high price. And you want to know what the reason is?
What?
No longer made. They just say no longer made, no longer made. and I'm like, I guess that's true, but it's the first experience I've had pretty much ever in my history of being into watches where on such a mass, if actually never, no one has ever said to me this costs more because than retail price because it's no longer made. Again, more than retail price on some like old model Rolexes.
Wow, that's the mantra now.
Not
That's
like
what they like to
vintage.
say.
Yeah, but that's their mantra, no longer made. And
yeah, they realize that it sells because I guess people would just say, "Oh, no longer made. All right, then give it to me."
so I go in all the stores. You've been to Hong Kong. I mean, can you just try to say for the audience like how many Rolex like I'm talking about authorized dealers there are
Like
in Hong Kong?
just insane number of them. Yeah, they're everywhere. Like 7-Eleven.
It's true. It's true. Did you go into any of them?
Yeah, of course. So what do you want? Do you want a soda from 7-Eleven or a new or a new Digest?
Oh yeah, Datejust there are is just as popular as soda. It's true. I remember one of the first times I was in Hong Kong, I went into a Rolex store, saw all the stuff I liked, and before I could even open my mouth, the saleswoman said, 50% discount. And I was like, boy, I wish I could afford something right now.
Yeah.
Now,
which store was this? Which brand?
This was a Rolex store in Hong Kong, like a big one, a nice Rolex store in Hong Kong. Official, they just sold Rolex, okay?
Wow.
And now you go in there and like they still follow you around at Rolex, at the little sort of like dealers that sell the hot stuff. They don't care, but at Rolex, they follow you around. They have not a single steel sports watch. I saw one store that had one. It was a Rolex store at the airport, and they had an Explorer, the 39mm Explorer. That's the only sport watch I saw at any authorized Rolex store in all of Hong Kong. No, did I go into every single one? Admittedly, no, but I went to like 5.
At this point, that puts that Explorer in the wrong light. You know, at this point, you think to yourself, "Well, this is the only one that literally nobody wants."
Yeah, it's actually pretty sad. Like you expect like
a bunch of the removed.
Even the Air King is hotter than the Explorer.
Quack quack. All right. Anyway, yeah, that's good to know. So the point is, no steel Rolex watches, sport watches there anywhere. So when was that 15% off thing? Was that this time or like years ago?
This was not that long ago, but this was admittedly before this sort of new situation was going on. I mean, back then,
so,
there were still plenty of extremely expensive Rolexes, but they were these vintage models and these things like that.
So this year they didn't say that to you. They didn't welcome you saying 15% off.
No, they just follow you around. It's really weird. They literally like follow customers around. Like they get like 3 or 4 feet behind them, or wherever they go, they follow them. It's super weird.
Yeah, maybe that's what's expected of them there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because that's what customers love, being followed. Everyone loves being followed.
Not you and I, but maybe it's
no
like
one.
a visual.
No one. If you like being followed, there's something wrong with you.
I don't, but maybe it's like an expectation. It's like maybe someone there would flip out, like, "Oh, you're not even following me. Clearly, you don't want to sell me something."
I think them saying hello, how are you, if you need anything, let us know is sufficient in every single culture.
Maybe. Let's get back to pre-owned Rolex watches.
So I'm looking at a few different websites right now. I've been looking at pre-owned Rolex watches, and I'm gonna start looking at some prices here. And it's interesting because we know the retail prices, and I'm just curious. What are the deals? Oh, great! It has to be in. I'm at Watch Finder. It's in British pounds. Change it to USD. That makes my life so much easier. Ah, voila. I mean, okay, so like the Submariner, the Hulk as they call it, with the green dial. Okay, this watch is still made for the time being, and they have one right here at $11,600, which is basically $2,000 above retail. This has no papers, no box. And this is a
Wow.
used watch.
Huh. That's a lot. So that's the
Okay.
Hawk Submariner you're talking
Yeah.
about, the green
No
sub, right?
no date. Okay. Used with box and with paper is great. Is going for $2,000 above retail.
9.5 or how much?
9.6.
9.6. Okay.
Okay. Pretty much the only watches you can get like somewhat of a deal on is the two-tone. Do you know what the retail price is on the two-tone? I'm gonna
I would
find out. I'm gonna
say
find out.
I would say somewhere about 20-25, depending on the dial.
No, it's got to be like 15.
No, it's way over. I literally just tried one on here
Okay.
not too long ago with the crazy VAT here, but still, and I can tell you it retailed for
I can tell you what it
hold
is in the
on.
U.S.
Okay, tell me.
13,400.
Okay, it was with a mob dial, mother of pearl dial with diamonds on it. It retailed.
I'm talking about the Submariner.
Oh, sorry, I'm talking about the Daytona. Sorry. Well,
Oh.
yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, yeah,
Okay,
13.
so that's 13.4 brand new if you can find one. This was the only watch that you could get for a deal in Hong Kong. For this watch pre-owned, you can get it like for well under 10,000. Well under 10,000.
Well, mark my words, the two-tone Rolexes are going to make like a huge surge upwards, huge surge in the next like 2 years tops.
Maybe we'll see.
I'm
So
100% sure about it.
okay. I mean, so this one used is going for 11,200. Again, we're on Watchfinder. This isn't like the bargain place, but I'm just showing an example.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that is that there. Boom. That's the only one there's a discount. But various types of sub. The going rate for like a standard Submariner without anything fancy seems to be like in the $9,000 range.
Ooh.
And then some new ones. I mean, here's just a Submariner date. Just your standard Submariner date, $11,600.
No idea why that is. That's ridiculous.
That's $3,000 above retail.
That's just stupid.
It's very strange. It's very, very strange. So but these watches are getting more and more difficult to find. So there was a very interesting model that I was looking for. I found 3 or 4 examples of the watch. It's no longer made. And the lowest price I saw in for Hong Kong was again $2,000 or $3,000 higher than I saw it for online. So this is a place where we used to think there was really great values and deals. I guess not so much anymore, and I'm trying to understand why. I think it's part of a bigger picture situation. But from everyone you've talked to, other than painful, what are some of their more recent experiences with pre-owned?
Rolex pre-owned, you mean?
Well, everything.
Overall, what I've heard a lot of positive experiences. Overall, I haven't heard any horror stories. Let me put it that way. In recent years, I couldn't name one. It's not like
what would a horror story even be?
Like you're getting like a damaged watch or a fake watch or like a poorly serviced watch or a watch with a messed up movement that only you figured out like 6 months after you bought it or anything like that.
Okay. So let me change to different Rolex models here because this is the new Deep Sea that just came out. This is a 2018 model. Surprisingly massive fluctuation in price. I'm on eBay, for example, and this watch ranges. There's 21 of these on eBay. The lowest price
those are not. There's plenty of those actually these days. That's what I was going to say. Yeah,
plenty. So the lowest price is 13,399. I think that's
not bad.
That's about retail.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Let me see what it is. This is. And remember that there's 2 dials, and one of the dials is going to be a little bit more expensive. That's I think they call it the D blue dial.
And which is funny because it actually looks a whole lot better on the old black tile, which you don't even see anywhere.
I see it. I saw both of them, and it's true that the blue one in Hong Kong was going for a lot more. All of them were going for above retail. Okay, so
Mm.
12,000, 250. Yeah, so they're within a few $100s of one another. Okay, so the cheapest price on eBay for this watch, the black dials, 13,399. That's above retail, right?
Hmm.
And you know what the highest price is it's for the blue dial one? Like $21,000. That's
21,000. That's.
like
Hmm.
why would they do that? Why would they go and put it for 21,000?
But wait, are we talking about which one, the deep sea or the sea dweller?
The deep sea.
Oh, okay. Well,
So let's say the lowest price for the blue dial or the black and blue dial. The lowest price for the black and blue dial is
but that watch is too large anyway.
15,000. We're just showing examples of the new watches and the price premiums. So about $2,000 to $3,000 over. So 15,250. There's 3,000 over, a little bit less, 3,000 over the D blue one. So even these watches are going for above retail, even though there's plenty of them available. It's interesting.
Hmm.
It's
So
very
we've
interesting.
established that there are fluctuations. So where are we going with this?
Well, I think it's important to figure out like what it means that it's happening. That's not an isolated thing. It's kind of happening around the world. Look, there's two ways to respond to this as a consumer. One, you can buy the Rolex and pay a premium. Rolex isn't making more money because there's somebody gobbling it up and they're taking the profit. So it's kind of like a middle agent's taking the money. That's something that I don't think the watch industry should particularly like. It's kind of like in the ticket industry with ticket scalpers. And that's kind of
Yeah.
what we're having in the watch industry. And in ticket scalpers, no one likes those. Governments try to regulate against them. It's kind of an unfair business practice. And the idea is, again, there's plenty of these watches available. They're just being sold at a premium by essentially scalpers. And for me, this is the dirty side of the gray market. I think the gray market got an almost heroic reputation with some of the sort of like constituency of consumers out there because they were able to
Mm.
deliver great values. But now I think the gray market, again, maybe it's partially about their survival or whatever it is, but they're turning to something different. And it's a tactic that consumers are really not liking. And that's who's
Yeah.
responsible for this, right? Because these are being purchased and resold by people intending to buy them or intending to sell them.
So one advice I would give, for example, is just try and give these guys an offer because they clearly understand they are selling them too high, and when they're discrepancies this large in terms of pricing and stuff, you should just go there and just give them an offer, not a lowball offer, but something that you would be feeling more comfortable paying, and just look up what is the cheapest on there online, and just say you're ready to pay that or maybe even a little bit lower, and see how desperate these guys are to move their stuff, because it's easy to list something for a lot on Chrome 24 or eBay or something like that, but it's a different question entirely whether or not you can actually sell it for that much.
What
So
happens? Let me ask you, what happens if this continues for too long? What are consumers going to do if they decide not to pay these prices?
I think consumers should be more afraid of paying this much, and then the whole thing is collapsing. So the thing is, if one or two larger entities on the market started selling these watches for a lot less, just to move stock out of desperation, or just for cash flow reasons, or whatever, or just because they want to do damage and they don't really care too much about it, then you're in trouble. As long as prices stay fixed, I personally wouldn't mind paying $20,000 for a steel Daytona if I know I can sell it for 19.5 in a year. That means I didn't own a watch for $20,000. I owned it for $500. So if the market is fixed, then everybody is safe. There's nothing to be crazy about or angry about. The problem is that this brings into the picture the perspective of, a bubble exploding. And if that happens, and the Daytona now starts selling for 14,000, as much as some people say it should, based on their reasoning or whatever, then you're burned with $6,000, and that's a problem. So there's this worry that you're paying over, and you're worried about not getting the same amount of money back. That's the problem why everyone's so freaked out about this, not because it's morally wrong or whatever.
Well, if the real estate market has any evidence, bubbles do burst. And I think that that's exactly what this is. I also think that there should be, to a large degree, a rejection by the consumer. If I say to people, don't pay more than retail. Pay retail, no problem. Pay more than retail, don't do it. You're just contributing to an ugly system that doesn't do you any good and creates a bubble that you know is unsustainable.
Yeah.
You're not.
Yeah,
It's
well,
not like you're doing Rolex any good.
but why would you want to do anybody any good? You're in the market, you're buying a product. It's not a moral decision. Everyone makes this into a moral
It's
decision.
who
This
you're
isn't. It's a
supporting.
market.
It's who your money goes
No,
to.
no, you're supporting yourself. You're buying something for yourself to enjoy, and then you want to sell it for sale.
With
That's the only.
resources going to someone else. You vote with your wallet. Who you buy from, who you choose to buy from, is just as important as what you buy. I believe that.
Yeah, no, I agree, but it's not a moral. That still isn't a moral decision in my mind. Support and whatever. You're not technically, you're giving your money to like one of those retailers or someone who just wants to flip one or two watches a year, whatever. But you're supporting a market, and you're supporting this dream of these watches being worth 60 or 80% over retail. And the problem is that, like I said, that everyone is thinking about, but I guess it's not being said out loud like this. Is that this whole thing, this whole discussion is about whether or not things stay this way. If everyone knew that these things would be like, these prices would be set for like 5 years, like two currencies that are fixed to one another, we wouldn't be having this discussion. Everyone would be just buying these watches, and you knew you could sell them for the same amount like 2 years from now. If that was the thing, this wouldn't be an issue, because everyone would just expect that and accept the fact that this is the price for this product now, and you could sell it for the same amount. The question is whether or not it stays like as it is, and if it doesn't, it's like a game of musical chairs, and you will be left standing there with your watch and God knows how many thousands of dollars in losses.
Okay, you know what? That's one perspective, and it's one you feel strongly about. Me personally, I reject the practice of spending more than retail on anything, if only because there's so many amazing things out there that you can buy at retail, which are great. So for
Yeah.
me, the best way of asserting that is by protesting.
Mm.
Protesting by not buying watches that are anything but retail price or under. If you spend above retail on something because it's like the hot thing to do, don't do it. If you spend above retail on something because you're supporting the career of some guy who basically every single day just runs around to authorized dealers trying to like gobble stuff up and then resell it, I don't think that that's a type of that's a parasitic type of job. I don't like that. I
It
don't want to
is.
support that. Right?
It's
So
not all of that. Yeah,
no,
but I agree. That's a
that
large part of it.
by no means represents all everyone. But again, if there's someone who goes out to search for some watch I'm looking for, they go to some country, they find something that I want, they bring it to me. That's a value. They went and hunted for that. If they stole it out from under me, if they went to my local Rolex dealer and they bought it just to resell it online, they're taking it away from me. They're literally
Yeah.
taking an opportunity away from me just for a parasitic gain because they think someone else out
Yep.
there will pay more. I don't like that. I don't like that at
I
all.
don't like that either.
That doesn't sit well with me. So the only way to
Hmm.
protest that is to not spend more than retail. I know that there's this excitement about keeping up and having the coolest watch and having something that was hard to get, but do so a different way than paying more than retail. I mean, if it's like a few $100, you know what? Okay, you're just whatever. But if you're paying significantly over retail, I mean, the Patek Philippe Nautilus, it's like almost double retail or more. And Patek Philippe says there's an 8 to 12 year waiting list I would just be like, you know what? You guys got a production problem. I'll go buy something from someone who doesn't have a production problem.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. And this reasoning and this way of thinking, I can totally get behind. I support that. So that's something a little bit different. But yeah, I totally agree with all that what you just said.
So again, it's a difficult thing because it makes me feel negative feelings towards brands and watches that I really like. Yet they're kind of
Mm,
sullied because they are included in this sort of practice of speculating and bubble creation and just a lot of people paying too much money to support roles I don't like. That's one of the
yeah,
reasons that I traditionally have a lot of issues with auction houses, because they try to create more value simply by saying it. They're not making these watches any better. And yeah, they're great performers, super good performers. But for me as a collector, do they add anything to my appreciation of watches? No,
no,
they just take away.
yeah. All right. On that note, I think we can end before we go down the road of watch auctions, which is a dirty, dirty business.
AKA
We don't want
Ariel
to get
goes on a
into.
rant for another 47 minutes.
Exactly.
um, I
Yeah.
think that this is an important issue because it goes to the heart of what watch consumers are doing, which is buying watches. And it relates to some of the watches that are great and that we want the most. And it's sad to me that a lot of that experience seemed to be sullied with, I can't buy it, or I need to spend a lot more. That's horrible to have to say to yourself. I don't want to have to say
Mm-hmm.
that. If I want a Rolex, which is cool, and it's like not 50 years old and some vintage thing, I want to be able to just go and buy it and not have somebody sitting out there waiting for someone to spend that amount. These people are sitting on watches; they're not being sold. They're just waiting for someone gullible enough to be like, "Yeah, it's worth $5,000 more." I
Yeah.
don't like that. I don't like that, and I do love watches. So I'd love to hear what everyone thinks about it. And again, vote with your dollars, everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of Spending Time. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.